Hello, and welcome to another episode of Design Tips and Sips. I'm Anna Gibson with AKG Design Studio, and this is the show that brings you design tips and sips. We talk about everything design, interior design related, lifestyle, health, wellness, and today we talk about travel. So welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
And in honor of Tanya's recent adventure, today we're sipping on Agua de Valencia, which are fresh orange juice, hopefully from Valencia oranges, with cava, gin, and vodka. So, wow, that's going to get you going on your Sunday brunch, right?
Yeah, we'll be chatty with this for sure. For sure. In 2 languages.
Yes.
Maybe 3.
3. I don't know, whichever one. So, all right. So let's get going. Ooh, this is delicious and dangerous,
It really is
right?
lovely, lovely.
So welcome to the show, Tanya. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm really excited to have you today because you're a travel agent, but one of the biggest things that we do as AKG Design Studio is really curate experiences for our clients and really push the agenda of bespoke life. And I think that as a travel agent, this is exactly what you guys do. So tell me the name of your company, TravelPro.
Sure. So my husband and I own a company called TravelPro Consulting. We are a cruise planners franchise. We are, and there's a couple of really important reasons for that. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the selling travel or helping somebody plan their trip, whether it's a family reunion or a honeymoon or a group trip of people who, with like-minded interests. It's really about adding chapters to somebody's life story. And when they step outside of their home, that adventure that they're experiencing comes back to their home. And, if you look around on somebody's shelves, you're going to see stories. And you're going to see stories of the things they've experienced in their life. And that is such an honor to be a part of somebody's storytelling journey as they go through their life and have their adventures. So we love that at TravelPro Consulting. It's been it's an absolute honor to be able to help somebody with their trips.
Absolutely. And as a family, at least personally, many years ago, we kind of already gave up doing the big gifts and stuff like that. Yeah, we still do little things here and there, but we really concentrated probably in the last 10 years on experiences, because the time that we spent together as a family traveling and doing something together, it's something that really creates that core memories versus just, buying another shirt or another, some gadget that within 6 months, nobody ever going to use or remember. But the time we spent together overseas or even traveling around the US, but the fact that we were together and we had crazy adventures, whether it's, even if it's just like missing a train or like missing a flight. And, we were going to Israel a couple of years ago and our flight got canceled last minute. And now we have this like crazy experience of like story that like now like how we got stuck here and like we made them pay for our hotel even though we live in Reston and like goofy stuff like that. But it's like memories that we created forever versus just okay, somebody bought me a shirt that I already promptly forgot about.
Well, unlike design, I think some of the best travel stories are when things go wrong.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So I think that's where we differ, I think.
Yes.
But it is true. The story I remember, being given the honor of somebody was going on a trip. It was her first trip out of the country. She was going to Bosnia on a religious pilgrimage of all things.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And her luggage was lost. And she did this entire hike up a mountain in ballet flats, and we were tracking down her luggage and trying to help her get it good organized. But it's true. It was one of the most memorable experiences for her.
Yep.
And I find that to be, and not necessarily in a bad way. She had a fantastic attitude about it. Like, well, I'm here on this religious pilgrimage. I'm having this experience where really I'm down to my ballet flats. And I've got to hike a mountain,
Yep.
and it is it's those moving experiences and those stories that somebody gets to tell is fantastic. I mean, and it really comes back to their home, right? And their space and it becomes part of who they are. And I think that's just such a gift.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more, like, how do you create those experiences for clients? Like, what do you need to know, and how do you really make it tailored to them?
Sure. Well, probably the same way you do, is we listen. You have to start out listening to a person and say, hey, tell me about the travel experiences that you have had. Oh, we had this wonderful family trip to, Busch Gardens, or we had this wonderful thing, wherever it was, whatever somebody's experience was. Where do they like to stay? What do they like to do? Are they active? Are they museum-y? Are they city oriented? Are they beach oriented? Right. And then really understand, when there's three things we need, probably the same similar to you. We need to know when they want to go. We need to know roughly where they want to go. And we need to know roughly how much they want to spend, or at least give us a ceiling. Right.
Yep.
Because you can go to the Caribbean on $3,000 and you can go to the Caribbean on $30,000.
Right.
It kind of depends.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
And being part of cruise planners, having a cruise planners franchise is tremendous for us, because that gives us the instant connection to the vendors. We've had our practice now for 6, almost 7 years, and we've been very, very successful. But a big boost to that was having that franchise relationship. Mm-hmm. So it's very easy for us to contact not just cruise lines, but land vendors, destination management companies, that sort of thing. And we have those instant connections that you wouldn't get if you booked through a big box travel, or if you went directly to a website and booked.
Right.
And what we're finding is people are returning to travel advisors because they want that advice. They legitimately want that advice. They want to know, hey, if I don't want to put 10 grand into a website, and Costco's great, but I can't get anybody on the phone.
Right.
And so we tell folks, hey, we're right there. If you need to know what type of hair dryer would work in a destination, we can give you that detail. Is there one in your room? Is there, that's not something you're going to wait online with Royal Caribbean to tell you.
Right.
And so we really do that type of planning, really put together some experiences that are very specific to the client. And then from there, go on, present them the options much as you yourself do. And they make a choice from that point. If they're like, oh, this is great. Or actually, you know what? We really thought we wanted the beach, but we really want to go to Greece instead. So where can we do beach and culture? Right. And we can rethink a lot of that. So,
right. And I know like we went down to even the advice of how to pack, right? Because I was like so inspired by you that like when you went last time to Europe, I think it was last year, that you packed just a carry-on and a backpack. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, how is that going to be? How is that happening? And I'm like,
yeah, it's a lot of, that's, I kind of joke. I'm like, that's kind of like 300, 400 level travel, right? Like right. Kind of as you're going through university, right? That's sort of it. But you get, you get really good at coordinating things. I feel like my outfits are sort of like Garanimals. Everything goes with everything else. It's non-wrinkle,
Mm-hmm.
and you really begin to pare down that way. Big fan of packing cubes. Like I've got all the tips, what to bring, what not to bring, how, even how to do it when things do go wrong.
Right.
Let's say you realize, oh gosh, I'm down to, one pair of underwear. What do you bring to wash your underwear? Yes, you can use shampoo. So it is sort of a funny thing, right? When you have those little mishaps and you find yourself down to bare bones, what you learn about yourself and your own resilience.
Right.
That opens up to sort of travel as therapy, almost like travel is getting yourself out of your comfort zone and saying, hey, what happens when you go there? But for the most part, people want to go and relax. They want to step away from their digital worlds, and they want a very human experience. And being able to provide that after coming from 20 years in the tech industry, and really understanding what it takes for somebody to unplug, or maybe replug, because I think probably one of the top questions we get is, what's the Wi-Fi like?
Oh my goodness.
Which is interesting, right? And it's again, it depends on where you're going.
Right, yeah.
On a ship with Starlink, pretty good. In the middle of the Himalayas, not so great. You know? So So that's the challenge, but it's true. People want to know um, what it feels like to exist in a different place.
Yeah, but that's how it also relate to design. And what we do is it's really the attention to details and really tailoring those travels to exactly what they want, and actually knowing how to facilitate that, right? Because as you said, you can go to the big websites and find, all these companies that provide those tours and stuff like that, but you don't know if these tours are good. You don't know if the hotel that is, everybody's talking about is actually in a good location and going to facilitate where you actually want to be, and how convenient that's going to be to what you're trying to accomplish, right? You don't know if the area is safe and stuff like that. And that takes a lot of time and effort. Like if you're planning a whole trip for a whole family. So for example, like 2 years ago, we went to Scotland with the whole family, and I'm like, okay, the daughter studied tourism, the husband is from there. I'm going to be the princess on this trip. I'm not booking anything. And then I was like, oh, they just left stuff for chance. And I'm like, we are in the middle of the most busiest tour season in Scotland. We're in August during the tattoo. They didn't book us tickets to the castle, which was like literally like, supposed to be the one of the highlights of the tour, because not only is just a castle, Andy also served in the castle as a soldier there. So there was a lot of connection there. And really the only reason that we ended up getting in was because he served there, and we had some other accommodations that they're like literally gave us like tickets on a sold out date when they turned out everybody else. But I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, never again, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
so these are the things, like if you're talking to a travel agent, they will let you know that, like, hey, listen, you're not going to wing it, right? You need to do shit string. Then I realized the hotel that they booked was like almost an hour from the city. And I'm like, okay, it was a great hotel with a pool, cost effective, but at the same time, it was almost an hour to go back and forth. So we didn't have the opportunity on like, oh, let's drop the kids. They're tired. They can go to the pool. We can continue traveling, because now we're an hour away.
mhm.
So, if we were actually worked with a travel agent, I think some of these things would be
I think
alleviated.
I think it's a lot about the individual's travel style too, right? Like and I think we see that a lot when we're booking groups of people.
Yeah.
So whether it's a family reunion or, somebody's pickleball club or, whatever the affinity is between people, right? Um, the everybody's style is a little bit different.
Absolutely.
So if somebody's like, well, we're on a budget and we don't mind being outside of the city and doing a little bit more of a commute, that's great. Some people really like to rough it and wing it. I think the older I get, I am far less comfortable with that, right?
Yes.
But I think a lot of people do love that, and
Yeah.
and so that's part of that initial listing component. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there are things where, when it's the busy season, when something's going to go into a festival, or there's a museum where they time their entrances. That came up recently in Granada, Spain. We had tickets to enter the Alhambra, but if you were winging it and you were like, oh, I'm just going to go to Granada, maybe I'll get tickets to the Alhambra. No, you won't. And that's a pretty significant UNESCO World Heritage Site that a lot of people travel to Spain to see.
Right. Yep.
So you want to make sure that you have that awareness of where you're going and what you're doing when you get there. But again, for some people, hey, they're just happy, with those happenstance, I like to call them Anthony Bourdain moments. It's an exquisite way to travel, to find that little out of the way cafe and have a conversation with someone, and you make this human connection, and you're like, gosh, I really loved Granada because remember that guy we met in the cafe? Or, I can tell you that about Paris because I've been to
Right.
Paris so often. Some of the most memorable Parisian experiences are people I met in cafes, not the big museums, not the big sites, not all. I mean, I've done all of that. But I think, especially for someone's first trip, or if it's a festival or it's something really special, you you don't want to leave too much to chance,
Right,
right? You want to
absolutely.
have time in there. And I think when people say, "Oh, I want to go on a tour," they think, there was an old movie. If it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium. A bunch of Americans on a bus, and you're traveling around checking out.
Right.
That sounds horrible. Like very few people want that.
Yeah.
Certainly not in Gen X. Certainly not millennials, right? People think they want to go a little bit more free. And I can tell you this: travel vendors know that. The tour companies that we work with. They know that, people want to go to Italy and they want to hike through vineyards. This isn't okay, everybody stand here and take a photo of the Leaning Tower. Everybody, no, it's you want your experiences, right? And you want these personal, bespoke moments on your trip. And I think there's more of that. And I like seeing how travel's depicted often in the media. There's a wonderful movie, I'm sure you've seen it, called A Real Pain, about the two cousins on the heritage trip, right? To Poland. And I happen to love Poland, and I find that's so endearing, because those were two guys with two very different travel styles.
Absolutely.
As well as everyone else on that
group,
tour, right?
Absolutely.
But they all did bond. They all had this incredible experience at the end, and it was really, really unique. But I found that's a fantastic movie that's a little goofy, a little poignant, a little adventurous, a little bit everything that you would have on a trip.
Absolutely.
Right? So
yeah, and that's really kind of relates to how we look at design. The same thing is like people are like, oh, I want to remodel my home, and they're trying to jump into it with absolutely no knowledge, and that's where we come as a designers and be like, hold your horses. There's so many things that we need to know. There's so many things we need to organize. There's so many things we need to coordinate. And just because you looked at Pinterest and decided that you like pink tile, which is great, love pink tile, that doesn't make you a designer or make you eligible or be able to remodel your home as a professional, because there's a lot of pits. And as you said, maybe in travel, it's going to be fun if you have these goofy moments that you're like, again, even like the whole scene of us trying to make our way into the castle, it's now going to be a core memory of like, how the heck did we make it happen? Versus if you started to do a huge remodel and now something doesn't fit, or something is now like 3 months back ordered and you don't know how to deal with it, versus having the correct team, the correct designer that's going to be like, don't worry about it. Having the correct travel agent be like, don't worry, we're going to take care of that for you. That's why we are here. Like, that's why, we check all the materials for our clients ahead of time to make sure everything perfectly fit to what we're doing. We've been there, we've done that. We know the solutions of how to even fix little things. I'm like, even in your remodel with the handles, right?
Oh, right.
When the contractor is like, what are you going to do with my handles? I'm like, don't worry, I have the right screws. We can do it, right? So it was a simple solution, but since they happen to never encounter, that's kind of like a newish type of door on the market, I already been there, done that. It was a simple solution for me to come and, help and fix that. But also talking about travel, I love travel. Like, I always joke that my mom wanted me to join the State Department so I can travel the world. But then I became interior designer, and now I get to travel the world, and I get paid and offered to come all over. So I've been to Brazil, I've been to China, I've been to Valencia, to Spain, I've been to Germany. I'm like, hey, if you need me to come, I'm coming. Next trip I'm hoping is going to be Italy, for Milan, Salone de Milan. We have a potential client in Italy, so that's kind of going to tie in with that. So again, that trip is going to be paid. Thank you. So it's, but even when I do that, I travel a lot by myself. Because I just go. So I really do try to make sure that I have time wherever I am to travel. But as a designer, I think that puts me one level above really a lot of designers, especially local designers, because I get to see, like, we literally just did, and I'm actually going to post that photo. We just did a black and white floor in a client's house, but I was just in Valencia and I walked on that historical black and white floor. And I'm like, how beautiful it is that I got to see in person that historical floor. And now I'm bringing it to my client's home. It just in general, especially leaving the US it's just mind blowing and mind opening that you can see things firsthand. Or a lot of time I talk to my clients about when they ask me about marble countertop, and I'm like, well, guess what? When you travel all around Europe, everything is marble. There was no man-made materials. So yeah, so think about all these stairs that you were walking in Italy. Think about all the statues that you saw in Greece. Everything is marble. So are you okay with that being in your home? Because it is going to get marked, it is going to get scratched, but that's the beauty of that. That's the beauty of having that. So then they go back and are like, oh, I do remember my trip and I do remember seeing it. And then they can make a decision. I'm like, you know what? It's pretty on the street of Greece. I don't want that at home. Or they're like, you know what? Yes, I want to live with that. I want to have that living stone. I want to have that adventure in my own home where I have that stain on my countertop because that reminds me of the best party we ever had, right? Or like, I'm not gonna say where it happens. We had a New Year's Eve, it was a rental, and we were dancing on the countertop. We ended up breaking it. So it was Formica, so it was easy fix. But but like this is the fun things that, like, again, creating that adventure in your own home and makes you remember and create that core memories in your homes as well. And I think bringing it with you, it's just amazing emotion that, like you said, like there's so many things on the shelf behind us that we brought from our travels. And my Hamsa collection at this point is like, it's from all over the world. And I absolutely love that, because when we're looking at it, it just brings those amazing memories. I know you also share a lot of your advice, mostly on LinkedIn, on your website, like where you share your blogs.
So there's a few things that we're working on to sort of build out our little travel empire. But right now, primarily LinkedIn, because my coming out of the travel industry for myself, and it's interesting. My parents were both in the travel industry. My father was in management with Pan Am.
Okay.
He was a director of maintenance for Pan Am's JFK headquarters. And my mother was a travel agent. So it was the industry that I grew up in and around. And I've traveled all around the world since I was a little tot with my parents. My husband's retired Air Force. And buying the travel agency, we did that after my mother had passed. We did it because my husband's a disabled war vet from Iraq and Afghanistan, and being a Beltway bandit wasn't really well suited to his health. So we needed some things that didn't involve him sitting in a car, driving around for long periods of time. And he is someone who is also a big adventurer. It's a big thing that attracted us together. And he has been growing the agency, I would say, these first 6 years. Now that we're in transition with the kids growing and flying on their own, they're on their own adventures.
I know one of your sons is in the Philippines, right?
He is, yes. He's a merchant mariner at the Merchant Marine Academy. So very proud of him. He's on a ship in the Philippines right now. The other one's in Denver, and my stepson's in Japan actually at the moment. So super exciting. They're a very global family. With that experience and our experiences, our own personal experiences all around the world, and Mike's incredible ability to do logistics. He was in Air Force Medical. He was a flight medic, and while carrying wounded is certainly not something that you would typically equate to a travel agent. It is on time, on target, and what to do when something goes horribly wrong, right? Mike is the guy you want in your corner. And it's funny because we laugh about, as our agency grows, we really would love to have an associate who focused on destination weddings, because the dads of the brides are super interested in working with Mike because he's really good with on time, on target. Like, you need grandma in Jamaica in a wheelchair on the beach. He's got it, right?
Got it, yeah.
So that has been such a it's sort of funny how our life experiences come together. But back to your question about LinkedIn, I lean in heavily to LinkedIn because to me, this is a career shift. And it is a shift out of my somewhat impersonal technical world where I focused on selling AI to some of the largest organizations on the planet, for some of the biggest, companies, to some of the biggest government agencies. And now moving into a far more human focused endeavor in travel. It's a very different experience. And I want my colleagues and my friends certainly to see that and to really transmit that trust that you've had in me with your technical needs to now your more human needs. And there's no greater honor than when someone reaches out to me and says, I've never been to Europe and I want to go. Can you help me? Because it's sort of probably very similar to you having someone's first home.
Absolutely.
Because it is an honor to be able to say, yes, let me show you what's out there.
Absolutely.
And in many cases, it's a solo traveler. Like you were describing, you travel alone. I travel solo sometimes as well. But sometimes it's people, primarily women, who have not had that ability. And either they find themselves saying, okay, well, my spouse is not interested in traveling or can't travel for whatever reason. And they're in midlife and they say, hey, this is what I really want to do. And part of what I'm working on is something called third age travel. Those of us that are in this third age of life, we've been young. We've had all that adventure travel with backpacks and no plans.
Been there, done that.
Yep. We've had our family travel, right?
Yep.
We've done the family trips and oh my goodness, make sure you have enough snacks. And maybe those trips are by car. Maybe those trips are, because it's expensive to move as a unit sometimes when there's a whole bunch of you. And now you're in your third age. And so now it's the things like, who really goes on a river cruise? Gosh, that's something my parents wanted to do. Can I do that? Yeah. There are river cruises that you have e-bikes and you can go on. It may not be what you think, and so really, what does that look like for those of us in our third age? And I would say our clients tend to look, especially for those individual bookings, they tend to look a lot like us from the standpoint of they're at this stage of life.
Right.
And what does that mean? Hey, I really want to do this. We've always wanted to go to Italy, or I've always wanted to go to Greece or to Israel or take a heritage trip or that sort of thing. And really being able to help people experience and grow their stories. It's remarkable. And like I'm sure how you feel too. It's like when you close that door at the end of a project and you see somebody in their happy home, there's nothing better.
Absolutely.
And for me, that's how I feel. It's like you hear their stories. Oh, we loved it. And oh, there was this crazy thing. And oh, our luggage was lost for 2 days, but it was fine. I bought this great dress, And so it's really fun. It's really fun to hear.
And I think we have the similar attitude as far as our clients. We love working, I guess, with that third age because they have the means, but they also know what they want. And we are here just to give them the direction and just make it happen. Just really just like they want a beautiful home that is most likely doesn't include the kids anymore, or include maybe a couple, rooms for the kids when they come back with the grandkids eventually. But right now they want to have their beautiful home and they want to bring their travel stories. So a lot of times we do have clients that I've been to Spain and I bought this beautiful tile. Like we had a project years ago that the guy used to travel for work actually to Peru all the time. And he brought this beautiful tile and I'm like, okay, how do we incorporate it into the design? And sometimes it's fun and it makes sense. Sometimes we do our best.
Some
like
of those
everything.
Spanish tiles can be loud. I've seen them in Spain. They can be quite loud.
Yeah, but I love that our clients are inspired by what they're seeing. And I love that our clients are traveling clients because that also makes them more open-minded. So when we're talking to them about black and white floor, they're like, yes, that reminds me my vacation in Spain. Oh my God, yeah, that tile reminds me of, the countryside in England. I'm like, so we're creating spaces that remind, so after they're coming back from their travel, they are still not living in their travel, but they have those memories with them, and hopefully that will also inspire them to, travel somewhere else and create more memories. But they also have those sanctuaries in their home that they feel like they still have these moments that they look at the floor. I'm like, yes, that reminds me of this location. This reminds me when we were there. So they're not always that far away from their travels. So other than LinkedIn, where else people can connect with you and Mike and have you take care of all their travel needs?
Sure. Well, our website is www.travelproconsulting.com. We are easily found on Facebook as well, Travel Pro Consulting. And we are certainly people can connect with me directly, Tanya Mazurowski. It's a long one. My husband's name's a little bit easier, Mike Ball. However, there's a lot of Michael Balls out there, so I tend to have people connect with me.
We'll have all the links in the comments, so don't worry. Yeah.
There's a famous soccer player named Michael Ball. There's a famous Welsh singer named Michael Ball. It's a very common name, so he's none of those people. But it is so my name tends to be a little more distinctive. But absolutely, and I think to your point about those memories, I think it's so valuable. We as far as I know, right, of all the places I've been around the world, as far as I know, we only have one life to live.
100%.
And so fill it with your stories and fill your home with things that remind you of your stories. Because that's what makes us all unique, and that's such a treasure. So I'm so glad to be here today having this conversation.
Yes,
it's so
absolutely.
exciting.
And is there any particular, other than cruises that I know you guys do a lot, what other areas, there's a specific area of expertise? I know you specifically travel a lot to Europe, but is there any area specifically as far as areas of the world or that you feel more comfortable, or you're just like
anywhere. We've sent multiple trips to Antarctica.
Okay.
So really anywhere you want to go.
All right. Anywhere you heard.
And
okay.
We're looking right now at Madagascar for somebody and how to put that together. We tend to favor more high-end travel. Although, hey, you have a gang of people and you want to, go to a beach resort and have a great time, no problem. We got you, or Carnival or whatever, Carnival Cruise Line's great. We are a cruise planners franchise, but we are not just cruises. And I think that's probably my one concern about that franchise. It is a very well-known name in the travel industry, but it's not a consumer
not a very
brand
good
that people know. Yeah, it's a challenge. But cruises are great because they're packaged. And I like to say they're a sampler platter of where you want to go. I think as Americans, especially Americans on the East Coast, we think cruises just go to the Caribbean, and they don't. So when you think about the rivers of Europe, when you think about that, certainly, my husband and I have both lived in Europe where, we invest in Europe. We know Europe well, but we also know Asia well. My husband spent a lot of time in Asia. I spent some time in Asia myself. There's so much you can do. I'm a big fan of kind of the unique cultures of the Caribbean. So I happen to love the Caribbean, but on a kind of a nerdy level, not just, hey, let's go to a beach and never leave our resort. But we certainly have that for people who want that. Again, Absolutely. It comes down to that listening. And certainly the United States, right? My husband grew up right near Glacier National Park. He will tell you that is the prettiest park he's ever been to. I've got a couple of other thoughts there, but it is lovely. And there's so much to see in this big, beautiful world of ours, and it will inspire so much of your life. I think travel is a form of education.
100%.
And
100%.
And you are never too old to learn or to see or to be somewhere new.
Or too young. Like Abigail traveled with us since she was 3 months old.
Right.
And, she became a very good traveler very, very quickly. And she's been pretty much almost all over the world at this point, and she loved traveling. And I think it is important to take your kids with you.
Absolutely.
So they get that education. They meet people that speak funny or they don't understand their language, because I think it also, especially, not to make anything political, but in this climate that we have right now, being able to understand or relate to people that don't look like you and don't speak like you is an education that is invaluable for our society. And being able to be kind to people that don't look like you and don't speak like you, and seeing that when you're traveling is a little bit different than when you're locally, because you kind of have to deal with it because everybody don't speak your language.
I'd go one step further and say it's very important for most Americans to understand what it feels like to be foreign.
Yes.
And I have a lot of tips for people, and I've written a lot about how to go somewhere and people don't know that you're an American. And I think that's important because I think we don't realize there's benefits and there's negatives to our geographic isolation here. We are on our own continent, right? And so I think,
and there's a lot of adventure you can do without leaving the US, but
I think it's important because I think that feeling of foreignness is something we don't often have.
Absolutely.
And so there's fear and there's exhilaration and there's that tingly feeling you get when all of your synapses are firing because there's an awareness that you're in a place where everybody speaks a different language. And it can be in an area, I think it could be in a place where you're comfortable, like a big city, in Paris, for example, is lovely. But yeah, everybody's going to speak French. You go to England and try to cross the street in London and not get mowed down because we're looking in the wrong direction for the car, right? So there are little funny things that,
I'm actually going to Japan in September and I'm like super
look
stressed.
the wrong way. Look the other way. The Japanese drive like the English.
But I'm also like really stressed out because I'm like, most of the time, the places I've been to India and Nepal many years ago, but like I feel like I could pronounce the name and I can remember the name of the places, and now I'm looking at my itinerary and making sure that I can pronounce the name and remember where we're going, because I'm like, this is so foreign, this is so out of my comfort zone, but I also don't want to insult the people that are hosting us. I don't want to insult the country where we are. And so it's like, this is exactly what I'm going through right now, that I'm like, I having those travel jitters that I haven't had in a long time, because I'm like, oh, how do I pronounce it? Or how, make sure I get to the right location, and just be respectful to the culture and going through, learning a lot of the things that are very, very specific to make sure we don't insult people. So,
well, I mean, there's those things, those little gentle foibles, I call them, right? I think that's understandable. I've never been in a host country where, somebody didn't trip up. And again, the offense isn't nearly as great as we may imagine it to be. I don't think that's what makes us an ugly American, so to speak.
Oh, no.
But I think also you touched on a couple of things. There's research that suggests the anticipation of travel is a huge part of what makes travel so fulfilling for people. So that lead up, those months leading up to your trip where you're picking out outfits and you're trying to study the language and you're trying to get an understanding of that, those jitters, or that excitement is, that anticipation of travel is part of the joy of travel, right? So that's one thing.
Don't look at my closet; it's full of new
stuff.
outfits.
Yeah. I think the other thing that you mentioned is again that feeling of foreignness. And for me personally, I find going to a country where I don't speak the language and I can't read to be absolutely exhilarating. Now, some people find that awful. They're afraid of it, and there are ways that we can certainly manage that. And so say, hey, again, it's managing everybody to their comfort level, know. But I feel like, to me, that was thrilling. And Japan, you're going to find a lot in English. You'll see the Japanese, and then you'll see English. I was so surprised in Poland. I was completely illiterate, and I come from Polish heritage. And of course, I have some basic Polish that I remember from my grandparents, but it was basically, kiss me and beer. Like
right.
that'll get you surprisingly far, but not, not even the basic pleasantries I had to master. And I couldn't master them. I was foibling all over the place. Try Norway. Very few people speak Norwegian, and I think we're a little bit, we benefit in that so much of the world also learns English, but don't expect it. because then you'll be relieved when it happens.
Right.
Right. Take that step out of your comfort zone, learn a little bit just to say thank you and please and where's the restroom. The older we get, the more I need the where's the restroom.
Yes.
But that importance is that little step outside your comfort zone. When you unlock something in a foreign language with a native speaker, you get a bigger appreciation for the diversity of the planet that we're in, and frankly, the diversity of the country that we're in.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you here. And thank you again for joining us for another episode of Design Tips and Sips. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you share it with your friends and family. We are here every Wednesday afternoon dropping a new episode. If you want to be our guest, please email me at Anna@AKG Design Studio. All the information and the show notes, including the amazing recipe and Tanya's and Mike information, are in the show notes. And if you have any comments, questions, make sure to type below. And see you next time. So
Cheers. Salud.
Salud.